Most storage units are supposed to hold the things people are not ready to deal with yet, but sometimes what gets locked away does not stay behind the door. Tonight, every receipt access log tag and forgotten box points back to someone who was never supposed to be part of the file. Comment your time and where you're watching from. I rented the unit because my new apartment was smaller than the old one. That was all it was supposed to be. 2 weeks of storage, maybe 3 if I got lazy. The place was called Mill Creek Storage, just outside Columbus, behind a strip plaza with a nail salon, a closed pizza place, and one of those tax offices that only looked alive in March. The woman at the desk gave me a gate code, a printed rental agreement, and a small brass lock from the display rack. She told me Unit B14 was clean and easy to reach. First row after the keypad. Drive-up door, no stairs, no hallway. That mattered because I had rented the moving truck by the hour, and the sky was already turning the flat gray color it gets before rain. B14 looked exactly like every storage unit I had ever seen. Beige metal door, concrete floor, dust gathered in the back corners. A few black scuff marks where someone had dragged furniture out before me. I opened the rolling door all the way, stepped inside, and checked for leaks. Nothing. Just a dry, empty box with a faint smell of cardboard and old rubber. Then I saw the receipt. It was folded once and caught under the black rubber seal at the bottom of the door, like the door had closed on it. I almost threw it away without reading it. I thought it was from the last renter. Storage places always had little scraps like that. But the name at the top stopped me. It was my full name. Not close, not a misspelling, mine. The unit number was B14. The facility name was Mill Creek Storage. The amount charged was $69 for 1 month. But the date printed beside it was from 2 years earlier. 2 years earlier, I had never been to that facility. I had not even lived in Ohio yet. I stood there for a moment with the truck idling behind me and my boxes still stacked inside it. I remember thinking there had to be a simple reason. Maybe someone else had my name. Maybe the printer had pulled the wrong customer field. Maybe the unit number had been reused so many times that some old record had crossed with mine. That was the explanation I wanted because the other option made no sense. I took the receipt back to the office. The woman behind the desk looked at it, then at my rental agreement, then back at the receipt. She did not look scared. That helped. She just looked annoyed, like the computer had embarrassed her. That unit was supposed to be clean, she said. She typed for a while, frowning at the screen. I could hear the little wall clock above the printer and the rain starting against the front window. After maybe a minute, she said the receipt number was attached to an old closed account. The unit had been auctioned once, then cleaned out, then put back into rotation. Probably just a bad data pull, she said. These systems do that. I wanted to believe her. I had a truck outside rain coming in and 3 hours before the rental rate doubled. So I folded the receipt, put it in my pocket, and went back to B14. Before I carried in the first box, I looked at the empty concrete floor again. Nothing else was there. I started unloading anyway. Not because I felt fine about it, but because nothing had actually happened yet. That was the part I kept repeating to myself. It was a receipt. A strange receipt, yes, but it was still just paper. The first few boxes were kitchen things. Plates wrapped in old towels, coffee mugs, a blender I barely used. I stacked them along the left wall and kept the heavier boxes low. The rain came down harder, while I worked ticking against the metal roofs of the storage row. Every few minutes, another car passed behind me on the access road tires, hissing through shallow puddles. I checked the receipt again after the third load. My name was still there. B14 was still there. The old date was still there. I hated that I expected it to look different the second time, like maybe I had misread it in the office. But it was exactly the same. When I carried in the box with my tax papers and old lease copies, I set it farther back than the others. I told myself that was normal. People put important boxes in the back. That was why they rented storage in the first place. Still, I turned the label toward the wall before I stepped out. The woman from the office came down in a golf cart while I was sliding in the last part of my bookshelf. She had printed something else, a small account summary. She said she wanted me to have it in case there were billing issues later. The page showed my new rental at the top. Under it was a separate line marked closed, same unit, different customer ID, auction status, zero balance. My name was not in the tenant box for the closed account. That should have made me feel better. It did not. Near the bottom, in a smaller field, there was a note that said contact merge error. Beside it was today's date. I asked her what that meant. She said the system sometimes tried to connect old records when a new customer had similar information. Name, phone number, address, email. She said it was annoying but not dangerous. Her exact word was annoying. I asked if the old customer had my name. She looked back at the page. No, she said, not exactly. That answer sat wrong with me. I should have asked what not exactly meant. I know that now. At the time, I was wet-tired and trying not to become the kind of customer who made a normal clerical mistake into a whole scene. She offered to move me to another unit, but B14 was already half full. The truck meter was running. The rain was getting into the boxes closest to the door, so I said it was fine. She smiled like she was relieved, handed me the printout, and drove back toward the office. I finished unloading in another 20 minutes. Before I shut the door, I took pictures of everything. The boxes, the empty space near the front, the corners, the new lock still in its package. I do that with rentals anyway, mostly because I have had landlords blame me for things before. It felt practical, not paranoid. Then I put the lock through the latch and pulled on it twice. It held. I drove the truck back, returned it with 8 minutes left, and went home to an apartment full of the boxes I had not stored. Around 9 that night, I opened the confirmation email from Mill Creek Storage. The PDF looked normal at first. Rental date, monthly charge, gate code, Unit B14. Then I noticed one line I did not remember seeing on the paper copy. Previous balance transferred $0. It was probably nothing. Zero meant zero. But I kept thinking about the closed account, the auction status, the phrase contact merge error. I downloaded the PDF and saved it to my laptop. Then I checked the receipt in my pocket one more time before putting it in a kitchen drawer by itself. The paper was dry. That bothered me more than it should have, because I had been standing in the rain when I found it. The floor outside the unit had been wet. My sleeves had been wet. Every box near the truck had dark spots on the cardboard, but the old receipt from under the door seal had no watermarks at all. The next morning, I went back for the box of tax papers. I needed one folder from it for a utility account, and I did not want to dig through storage after work. It was still raining lighter than the day before, but enough to leave the whole facility looking washed out and gray. My gate code worked on the first try. The keypad beeped, the metal gate rolled open, and I drove straight to B14. Nothing looked disturbed. The door was down. The brass lock was still there. I checked it before opening the unit, mostly because of the receipt, but there were no scratches around the shackle, no cut marks, no dents on the latch. That helped for about 3 seconds. Then I opened the door. The unit looked exactly how I had left it, except for one thing. A clean white receipt was lying on top of the kitchen box nearest the front. It was not folded. It was not dusty. It looked freshly printed. I did not touch it right away. I stood under the raised door and stared at it, trying to make my brain put it somewhere normal. Maybe it had slipped from my pocket. Maybe the woman from the office had given me 2 pages and one had fallen into the unit. Maybe I had set it there while locking up and somehow forgot. But I knew I had not. I took a picture before picking it up. The receipt had my name again. Same facility, same unit, same monthly charge. But this one had a line the old receipt did not, forwarding address. Under that line was my apartment complex, my building number, my unit number, not my billing address from the rental form, not just the street, the exact apartment. I felt heat move up my neck even though the air was cold. That address was not on the old receipt. It was not written on any box near the front. The only boxes with apartment paperwork were taped shut in the back, turned toward the wall. I checked the lock again like it could explain something after the fact. It could not. The lock still looked new, the key still worked normally, the latch had no marks around it. The rubber seal at the bottom of the door was clean, except for a thin line of wet grit. I called the office from right there. A man answered this time, the manager, I guess. I told him there was another receipt inside my locked unit. I told him it had my home address on it. He went quiet for a second, then asked if I was sure I had not left it there yesterday. That question made me angry. Not because it was impossible, because it was exactly the question I would have asked if I were him. I told him to come down and look. While I waited, I pulled the tax box from the back. The tape was still sealed. None of the flaps were lifted. Nothing looked stolen. That was what made it worse. If someone had broken in, they had not wanted my things. They had wanted to leave something with them. The manager arrived in a golf cart with a clipboard tucked under his arm. He looked at the receipt, then at the lock, then at the boxes. He said the access log only showed my code from yesterday afternoon and that morning. No employee override, no maintenance entry, no failed gate attempts. He said he could change the lock for free. I told him the lock was not the problem. He did not argue. He just looked at the receipt again, especially the forwarding address, and stopped acting like it was only a billing issue. I started moving the important boxes out first. Tax papers, lease copies, old family photos, anything with my address on it. The manager offered to let me switch units, but by then that sounded worse than leaving. I did not want my things deeper inside that place. I wanted them out. When I lifted the kitchen box, something stuck to the bottom edge and scraped across the concrete. It was a small white inventory sticker, the kind storage companies use during cleanouts and auctions. It had a barcode no company logo and 3 printed words. Cleanout pending. I had carried that box from my apartment myself. It had never been in another storage unit. It had been sitting in my kitchen for 2 weeks before the move. The manager saw the sticker in my hand. He did not say anything this time. The manager drove me back to the office in his golf cart, while I followed in my car with the first load of the boxes. I kept the clean-out sticker on the passenger seat. I did not want it in my pocket. I did not want it touching anything else I owned. Inside the office, he printed the access log. It showed my gate code from the day before. Then my gate code again that morning. Nothing between them. No employee entry, no manager override, no maintenance code, no failed attempts at B14. On paper, no one had entered my unit except me. That should have been good news. It was not. I asked to cancel the rental immediately. He said he understood. He was careful with his words now, the way people get when they know something might become a complaint. He said he would waive the month, refund the lock, and create an incident report. Then he asked if I wanted to transfer to another unit for free. I said no. He nodded like he had expected that answer. For a few minutes, everything became ordinary paperwork again. Cancel form, refund slip, printed log, incident number, his name signed at the bottom, mine under it. The printer clicked and pushed out page after page, and I remember feeling almost embarrassed by how scared I had been. That is what paperwork does. It makes things feel contained. Then he stapled the second receipt to the incident report, the one with my apartment address. I asked him not to keep the original. I said I wanted copies only. He looked like he might argue, then scanned it instead and handed it back. I spent the next hour emptying B14. I did not sort anything. I did not open boxes. I did not check for missing items beyond what I could see from the outside. I just loaded everything into my car and a small rental van I picked up from a hardware store nearby. The manager came down once to make sure I was okay. He stood a few feet away from the open unit and did not step inside. That bothered me. When the last box was out, B14 looked clean. Too clean, maybe. The concrete was darker near the walls and lighter in the center where my boxes had sat overnight. But close to the door, there was a pale rectangle on the floor. It was the size of a folded receipt. The concrete around it was dusty. That spot was not. I took one last picture. Then I closed the rolling door without locking it and walked away. For the next 2 weeks, nothing happened. No calls from Mill Creek, no emails except the refund notice, no strange papers in my mailbox. I told myself the whole thing had been some ugly software error mixed with a careless clean-out sticker. Maybe the sticker had stuck to the bottom of the box in the moving truck. Maybe the receipt had been printed from a cached profile. Maybe the address had come from my rental agreement and looked worse than it was. I had almost convinced myself. Then the envelope came. It was from Mill Creek Storage, plain white, my name and address printed on the front. I opened it over the kitchen counter expecting a final refund statement. It was a final invoice. At the top it said my rental had been closed, balance 0, account inactive. Under that was a line that said final clean-out completed. I stared at that line for a long time before I noticed the location field under it. It did not say B14. It did not say Mill Creek Storage. It said apartment 214, my apartment. Not under billing address, not mailing address, not customer address. The words were very clear. Unit cleaned apartment 214. I called Mill Creek 3 times that afternoon. The first 2 calls went to voicemail. On the third, the woman from the first day answered. She said my account was closed and there was no final clean-out invoice in their system. She said they did not use that wording for customer rentals, only abandoned units. I asked if she could look up apartment 214. She was quiet for a while. Then she said, that is not one of ours. I still have the invoice. I keep it in a folder by itself. Not because I need proof, because I'm afraid to put it with the rest of my papers. My father had been dead for 3 weeks when my sister and I went to clear out his storage unit. That sounds like the beginning of a sad story, but it was mostly paperwork. Death certificates, utility calls, a bank appointment, then the storage bill. The unit was in Mesa behind a tire shop and a car wash that never seemed to close. The place had a keypad gate, tan metal doors, and dust gathered along every curb. The manager gave us 7 days to empty the unit before another month charged to the estate. He set a temporary gate code for us while we were in the office. 1187, the last 4 digits of my phone number. He said it was easier that way. My sister wrote it on the back of an old envelope. I remember that clearly because she made a joke about Dad hating simple passwords. Then the manager printed the clean-out form circled Unit D22 and handed me the key they had on file. D22 looked normal. Too full but normal. My father had labeled almost everything. Tools, camping, taxes, Christmas, fishing. His handwriting was on every box, thick black marker, all capital letters. Seeing that helped for a minute. It made the unit feel like his garage, not like a place strangers could get into. We had pulled out 2 boxes when the manager came down in a golf cart. He said there was probably nothing to worry about, which is never a sentence that makes you feel better. He held a printed access log in one hand and kept looking from it to the keypad gate at the end of the row. The log showed an entry from the night before. 12:43 a.m., code use 1187. I told him that was impossible. He had created the code 10 minutes earlier while we were standing in his office. He frowned at the page and said the system had been acting strange since a software update. Sometimes temporary codes preloaded before they were active. Sometimes timestamps came in wrong if the network dropped. He said old gate systems did weird things in Arizona heat. That sounded reasonable enough to keep me from panicking. No one had stolen anything. The lock was still on the door. The unit was packed the way my father had left it, at least as far as I could tell. My sister asked if we should stop. I looked at the boxes, then at the clean-out deadline on the form. We both had work Monday. The estate account was already short. Stopping over one bad line in a gate log felt dramatic. So I said we should keep going. I pulled a box marked campsing toward the door. As it scraped across the concrete, I noticed a pale rectangle in the dust behind it farther back in the unit. Something large had been sitting there recently. Something that was not there now. I pointed the clean rectangle out to my sister. She crouched near it, careful not to step on the dust, and said it was probably from one of the boxes we had already moved. I wanted that to be true, so I did not argue. But the shape was too far back. It was deep in the unit behind a stack of fishing gear and a folded card table. We had not reached that area yet. The manager looked at it too. He did not say much. He just took a picture with his phone and told us to keep an eye out for anything missing. That made it feel like theft, and theft was easier to understand than a gate code that worked before it existed. We kept sorting. My father had saved more than we expected. Rusted hand tools, coffee cans full of screws, old Christmas lights, 3 tackle boxes with brittle plastic handles. The heat inside the unit got heavy fast and the dust stuck to my arms. Then my sister pulled out a cardboard box marked Dad's Tools. It was sitting close to the front, almost like someone had wanted us to open it first. The tape on top was newer than the box, clear tape still glossy. My father usually used brown packing tape, and too much of it. My sister cut it open with her car key. There were no tools inside. There were school folders. At first, I thought they were my father's old records from when he worked for the district. Then I saw my name, report cards, class photos, a spelling bee certificate from 5th grade, a folder with my elementary school logo printed on the front. I laughed once because that was the first reaction my body found. Parents keep strange things. Maybe he had kept more than I knew. Maybe my mother had given him a few boxes when she cleaned the garage. But that explanation fell apart as I kept looking. I remembered these folders. They were not vague childhood things. They had been in a blue plastic tote at my mother's house in Tucson. I had seen that tote 2 months earlier when I helped her move a shelf in the garage. My sister called our mother while I stood there holding my 5th grade report card in the heat. Mom sounded confused, then irritated, like we were accusing her of losing something. She said the tote was still in her garage. She had not given Dad anything from it. She had not even opened it in years. The manager asked if our parents had shared storage at some point. My sister said no too fast. I understood why. They had been divorced for 11 years. They barely shared holidays, let alone storage space. Inside one folder beneath the school papers, there was a folded photocopy. It was not old like the rest. The page was clean, sharp, and white. It was a storage rental agreement. The facility name was printed across the top. Same place, same address, same unit number, D22. Someone had circled the unit number in red pen. Under it, in the margin, someone had written one sentence. Not this one yet. I looked at my sister. She had stopped crying sometime without me noticing. The manager took one step back from the open box. The manager asked to see the photocopy. I handed it to him without letting go at first, which was ridiculous, but I did not like the idea of it leaving my hand. He read the circled unit number, then the sentence in the margin. Not this one yet. He said it might have been from an old auction packet. Facilities made copies of rental agreements for cleanouts. Sometimes papers ended up in the wrong unit. He said all of that in the tone of someone trying to calm himself down before calming us down. Then he went back to the office and printed a longer access report. There were 3 entries from the night before: 12:43 a.m., 1:17 a.m., 2:02 a.m. All 3 used code 1187. There was no matching exit after the last entry. The manager said the exit sensor missed vehicles sometimes, especially if someone followed another car through. That was possible. A lot of things were possible, but every explanation made the whole thing feel less accidental, not more. We went back into D22 because we still needed the personal documents. I hated that. I hated making the practical choice while holding something that said not this one yet. But my father's tax boxes were in there. So were old insurance files, medical bills, and a lockbox we had not found. My sister noticed the second moved item first. A green tackle box was sitting on top of a folded lawn chair. It was not dusty underneath. The chair was. Someone had placed it there recently. Inside the tackle box were no lures, no hooks, no line, just one sealed envelope with my name on it. Not my full name, just the name my father used when he was trying to get my attention. For him. My sister wanted to open it. I did not. We stood there arguing in low voices like the unit had neighbors. She said if Dad had left something for me, we could not walk away from it. I said Dad would not leave it inside a tackle box he had not opened in years. She was right about one thing. If we left it, we would spend the rest of our lives wondering. So I opened it. There was no letter, just a photocopy of the gate instruction sheet from the office. The part about temporary codes had been circled. Under it, someone had written 187 in black pen. My sister went quiet. My father always put a line through his sevens. Always. Checks, birthday cards, grocery lists, everything. The 7 on that paper had no line through it. The manager looked at the handwriting, then at the access log, then toward the gate. He did not offer another software explanation. He just said he was changing the code and replacing the lock. We watched him do it. He deleted 1187, typed in a new code, and printed the confirmation. He also added a freeze note to the account. No access without one of us present. No employee clean out. No auction processing. No exception. That should have been the point where I felt safer. But when the confirmation page came out, there was a small line at the bottom labeled previous user. It did not say temporary code. It did not say estate access. It said my father's name. After that, we stopped sorting. My sister wanted to keep going for about 10 seconds, then looked back at the confirmation page and changed her mind. We took only what had names on it: tax boxes, insurance folders, the school papers, the envelope. Anything that could be used to prove who we were. The manager walked with us to D22. He had the new lock in his hand, still sealed in plastic. He did not talk much now. He checked the latch, the door track, and the concrete around the unit. Then he stood aside while we loaded the personal boxes into my sister's SUV. I called the non-emergency police line from the parking lot. The officer who called back was calm and tired. He said if nothing was missing and there was no clear break-in, they could document it as suspicious activity. He did not make it sound dramatic. That helped in a strange way. Real things rarely sound dramatic when people write them down. I gave him the access times, the code, the handwriting, the school folders. The manager gave him the incident number from the facility. My sister took photos of every page before we put anything in the car. Right before we left, she found one more thing in the 5th grade folder. It was my class photo. My face had been circled in red pen. On the back, someone had written, "This one answers." My sister started crying then. Not loud, just enough that I knew we were done. I put the photo in the glove box, and we left without opening another box. That night, the manager called me at 10:18 p.m. I remember the time because I almost ignored it. His voice was low and careful. He said the gate had logged another entry after we left. I asked if it was the new code. He said no, it was 1187. I told him that code had been deleted. He said it had. That was why he was calling. The entry was not listed as tenant access. It was not listed as employee access either. The user type said owner override. I asked which owner. He did not answer right away. Then he said my father's name was still attached to an archived owner field in the old system. It should not have been active. It should not have opened the gate. It should not have done anything. I asked if anyone opened D22. He said no. The unit door sensor did not show activity, only the gate. The next morning, we went back with an officer. D22 was still locked with the new lock. No marks, no damage. Nothing looked moved inside, but there was a small box on the concrete outside the door. It was not dusty. There was no label, no shipping tape, just a yellow sticky note on top. Wrong one. Inside were all my school folders stacked by year. The 5th grade folder was on top. The class photo was gone. My sister still thinks someone knew our father and got into the system somehow. I hope she is right, because if it was a person, then at least people can be wrong. I rented Unit C19 because my print shop had closed, not because anything strange had happened. That is the part I wish people understood first. It was just business cleanup. Old invoices, customer proofs, tax folders, a paper cutter too heavy to move into my apartment. Things I could not throw away yet, but did not want to look at every day. The storage place was in Harrisburg, a climate-controlled building with glass doors, bright hallways, and rolling carts lined up near the office. It felt safer than the outdoor units I had used before, cleaner, more official. The manager, Marcy, walked me through the rental form and reminded me not to store food paint or anything living. C19 was at the end of Hall C near an emergency exit with a green light above it. The unit was empty when she opened it. Concrete floor, white metal walls, a sprinkler pipe overhead, no smell except dust and cold air. I signed the move-in inspection sheet, then started bringing in boxes from my van. The first cart had customer job folders, 2 banker boxes of tax records, and the old paper cutter wrapped in a moving blanket. I had just pushed it inside when I saw the red tag on the floor. It was small plastic and scratched around the hole at the top, the kind of tag you would expect on a key ring or a warehouse shelf. It was lying against the back wall, face up. C19/hold for owner. I read it twice before picking it up. At first, it did not scare me. It annoyed me. I had just signed paperwork saying the unit was clean, and there was already someone else's tag inside it. I brought it back to the office and handed it to Marcy. She looked at it, then at the unit number. "That shouldn't be in there," she said. I asked if C19 had belonged to someone else. She said every unit had belonged to someone else at some point, but C19 was not an auction unit. It was not delinquent. It was not under hold. She checked the screen while I stood there and said my account was active and normal. Then she dropped the tag into the trash can beside her desk. That should have been the end of it. I went back to the van and loaded the second cart. Boxes of closed invoices, a roll of old vinyl signs, my file box with the lock built into the lid. I remember putting that file box deep inside C19 label turned toward the wall because it had customer addresses and bank paperwork in it. When I came back into the hallway, one wheel of the rolling cart dragged for a second. Something red was caught under it. I thought it was a candy wrapper at first. Then I bent down and saw the edge of a plastic tag scraped against the floor. Same color, same shape, same scratched hole at the top. I did not pick it up right away. I just stared at the red plastic edge caught under the cart wheel because my first thought was not fear. It was irritation again. I thought maybe Marcy had missed the trash can. Maybe the tag had stuck to my sleeve. Maybe there had been 2 tags in the unit and I had only noticed one. That was the version I wanted. I lifted the wheel and pulled the tag free. It was bent where the cart had dragged it, but the printed label was still readable. C19/hold for owner. The same words, the same unit number. This time there was a short zip tie through the hole at the top. Old cloudy plastic. The cut end was rough, like someone had used side cutters and left a sharp little point. I took a picture before I touched anything else. Then I rolled the cart back to the office. Marcy was on the phone, so I waited near the front counter with the tag flat on my palm. When she saw it, she ended the call faster than she needed to. "Where was that?" she asked. I told her it had been caught under the cart. She frowned and took it with 2 fingers like it was dirty. Then she opened a drawer behind the desk and pulled out a white paper label with a barcode on it. "This is what we use for regular inventory," she said. "The red ones are old." I asked what old meant. She said they were used for auction holds. Sometimes a unit was abandoned, but one item inside had a dispute on it. Estate claim, legal hold, owner exception. The red tag meant staff were not supposed to sell or discard that item until someone cleared it. I asked why one would have C19 on it. She did not answer right away. Instead, she turned to the computer and pulled up my rental. Active, paid, new move-in, no delinquency, no auction status, no notes. She said all of that out loud, more for herself than for me. Then she clicked another tab. The screen changed to a record history page. Most of it was blank. One line sat near the bottom in gray text, like it had been pulled from an older system. Owner hold pending. Marcy stared at it for a few seconds. She said C19 had been renumbered after a renovation. Hall C used to be shorter. Some unit numbers had been moved. That field was probably attached to the old C19, not mine. She said old software did that sometimes. I believed enough of it to keep moving because I had no better choice. My old landlord wanted the print shop empty by 5. The paper cutter was already inside the unit. The tax boxes were too heavy to keep driving around in my van. Before I went back, I asked her one thing. Could this freeze my unit by mistake? She said no. My account was current. My ID was verified. My lock was mine. Nobody could process anything in C19 without a manager override. That answer should have helped. It did not. I went back to the hallway and finished unloading. This time I took pictures after every cart. The file box, the cutter, the banker boxes, the label on the door. I told myself I was doing it because of the closed business records, not because of a red tag. When I took the last photo, my phone would not focus on the file box. It kept shifting to the dark gap behind it. A small red corner was visible there, pressed between the box and the wall. I did not move the file box after that. I closed the unit, locked it, and stood in the hallway for a few seconds with the key in my hand. The building was quiet, except for the air system and the weak rattle of another cart somewhere near the front. I almost went back to the office. Then I looked at the time. It was already 4:18. My old landlord had texted twice asking if the print shop was empty. I had one more load to get out before the doors were locked for good. So I did what people do when something feels wrong, but not wrong enough to stop their whole life. I left. The next morning I came back for the file box. My accountant needed the final sales tax folder, and I knew exactly where it was. Hall C looked normal, cold air, bright lights, no carts moving. My access code worked. My lock was still on C19, and there were no scratches around it. Inside, the file box had been turned around, not moved far, just rotated. The label I had faced toward the wall was now facing the door. A red tag was zip-tied to the handle. The plastic was newer this time, clean, bright. The zip tie was tight enough that it had pressed into the black handle of the box. C19/hold for owner. I took pictures before touching it. Door, lock, floor, box, tag. The small dent in the handle where the zip tie pulled tight. I did not want anyone telling me later that I had imagined the order of things. Then I called Marcy from inside the unit. She came down with a handheld scanner and a pair of cutters. She looked at the tag on the file bond and did not say anything for a while. That scared me more than another explanation would have. She checked the access log from her tablet. Only my entry the day before, then my entry that morning. No employee access, no maintenance, no alarm, no override, nothing that explained how a new zip tie had been tightened around my file box. I asked her to scan the tag before she cut it. She hesitated. I told her I was not letting anyone remove it without a record, so she scanned it. The device beeped once. A small item page opened on the screen. Box legal/customer records. Hold pending owner contact. For a second, neither of us moved. I told her those were my records, my customer records, my tax files, my old lease paperwork. I had placed that box there myself less than 24 hours earlier. Marcy said the item description might have been auto-filled from an archived inventory batch. She said the scanner sometimes pulled old metadata if the tag number had been reused. I asked why the old metadata knew what was inside my locked file box. She did not answer that. She cut the zip tie and gave me the red tag and a plastic evidence sleeve from the office. I thought that meant I could take the file box and leave. Then her tablet chimed. Marcy looked down and her face changed in the way people's faces change when policy has just become more important than common sense. She said the system had flagged the file box as held inventory. Because the tag had scanned active, she could not release that specific item until corporate cleared the record. I laughed once, not because it was funny, because it was insane. She said I could remove the rest of my property, just not that box. That was the first time the storage place took something from me without stealing it. I asked for everything in writing: the access log, the scan record, the hold status, her name on the incident report, the corporate case number. She printed the case sheet in the office while I stood there still holding the key to my own locked box. At the bottom of the page was the contact field for the hold. It was not the Gmail address I had used to rent the unit. It was my old print shop email, the one I had not given them. I stared at the email address until Marcy asked if it was mine. I said it used to be. That was the closest answer. The print shop account still existed, but I had stopped using it after the business closed. I kept it active for receipts, vendor history, and old customer files. I had not typed that address on the storage rental form. I had used my personal Gmail. I was sure of that because I had the confirmation email on my phone. Marcy said corporate systems sometimes pulled contact information from scanned documents. If my old email was printed on something inside the file box, the inventory software might have read it during a previous process. I asked her how the software scanned the inside of a locked box. She did not defend that one. I went home without the file box. That sounds small until the thing being kept from you has tax records, customer addresses, old bank forms, and the paperwork you need to close a failed business properly. I changed the password to the print shop email as soon as I got back. There was a message in the inbox from 211 that morning. Storage hold, contact verification. The sender looked like the storage company at first glance, but the domain was off by one word. It came from a third-party inventory platform I had never heard of. The verification link had expired. I did not click it. I took screenshots and forwarded them to my personal email. Then I checked the sent folder. There was one email I had not written. It had gone to a customer named Whitaker Dental, a small office that used to order appointment cards from me twice a year. The subject line was old and boring. Records confirmation needed. The message was only 2 sentences. Please confirm the last mailing address on file. We are reconciling closed print records for storage release. It used my old signature block, my name, my phone number, the shop address that no longer belonged to me. I called Whitaker Dental from my cell phone. The receptionist remembered me after a minute. She said she had replied because the email looked normal and because the old invoice number in the subject line matched one of their orders. I asked what she had sent. She said just their old mailing address and the name of the office manager from that year. Just, people say that word when they do not know which detail matters yet. I called Marcy, then corporate. Corporate said the case was already under owner hold review. The woman on the phone sounded calm enough to make me angry. She said the fastest way to release the file box was to sign a held inventory release form. She emailed it while we were still talking. The form listed C19. It listed my file box as held inventory. Under relationship to item, it did not say tenant. It did not say account holder. It said next owner contact. I told her I would not sign that. She said without a signed release, the item could remain on hold until the review was complete. I asked how long that took. She said usually 30 to 45 days. My accountant needed the folder that week. That was the trap. Not a dark hallway, not a locked door, a form with the wrong words on it, and a person on the phone waiting for me to make it official. I did not sign. I filed a non-emergency police report, changed every password tied to the print shop, and called the customers I could remember. Most did not answer. 2 did. Both said they had received record confirmation emails that morning. That night, corporate sent a PDF copy of the hold file. The preview image showed my locked file box inside C19. The red tag was not on the handle anymore. It was inside the box lying on top of the folders. I did not sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the preview image from the PDF. The file box was locked. I knew it was locked. I had the key on my kitchen table, but the red tag was inside it. By morning, I had a police report number, a corporate case number, and 3 separate screenshots saved in a folder on my desktop. I brought all of it back to the storage facility. Marcy was already at the front desk when I walked in. She looked tired in a way that made me think she had been dealing with corporate too. She said they had approved supervised access. Not release, not correction, supervised access. That meant I could open the file box in front of her, confirm the contents, and remove it if the hold record was cleared during the visit. It sounded like permission to take back my own property dressed up as a favor. We walked to C19 together. The hallway felt colder than before. My lock was still on the door. The seal was intact. Marcy checked the access log on her tablet before I opened anything. No entries after mine, no maintenance, no override. Inside the unit looked normal. The file box sat exactly where I had left it. The handle had a mark from the zip tie, but no tag. No plastic, no red corner behind it. I unlocked the box with my own key. The red tag was on top of the first folder. Neither of us said anything. I took a picture. Marcy took one. Marcy took one too. The words on the tag had changed. C19/hold for next owner. I had to read it more than once because my brain kept trying to correct it back to the first version. Hold for owner. That was strange enough. Hold for next owner was something else. It sounded less like a mistake and more like a transfer. I checked the folders quickly. Nothing obvious was gone, but everything had been touched. Customer index cards were no longer in alphabetical order. The old business checking setup packet had been pulled halfway out. A photocopy of my driver's license, the one I used for the old shop lease, was sitting on top of the closed invoices. There was also a folder I did not recognize. It was a printed incident report from the storage company. The same case number, same unit, same file box description. At the bottom was a release acknowledgement. My name was typed under the signature line. Above it was a signature that looked enough like mine to make my stomach drop. I had not signed it. Marcy whispered I did not print that. I believed her. Corporate cleared the box while we stood there. I do not know what Marcy said on the phone, but her voice had a sharp edge I had not heard before. She documented everything: the changed tag, the false signature, the folder inside the locked box. Then she let me remove all of it. I emptied C19 that afternoon. I did not ask for another unit. I did not wait for a refund. I took every box to my apartment, then regretted bringing them there as soon as they were inside. For 1 week, nothing else happened. Then corporate emailed me. Subject owner hold case resolved. The attached PDF was a final incident report. I opened it because I needed to know what they had written. The scanned photo showed my file box in C19 with the red tag on top. The words were clear: C19/hold for next owner. At the bottom of the report, a system line read, "Next owner contacted pending response." The email had been sent to my Gmail, but the next owner contact listed in the PDF was my old print shop email. I logged into that account again, or I tried to. The password had been changed. I recovered it through my phone and found one unsent draft in the account. Subject RE Unit C19 release. The body had one sentence: "I found him. Send the next file." I shut the account down that night, or I tried to. The recovery email had already been changed to an address I did not recognize. The only word I remember from it was storage. I rented Unit F31 because contractor vans get broken into. Anyone who works out of a van knows that. You can lose a week of income in one night if someone takes the right tools. So, I kept the expensive things in storage: paint sprayer, finish nailer, laser level, specialty bits, anything I did not want sitting in a parking lot after dark. The facility was outside Knoxville, behind a mulch yard and a row of small warehouses. Drive-up units, gravel lanes, keypad gate, nothing fancy. I liked it because I could back the van right up to the door and load fast before a job. That Monday I had a cabinet repair scheduled in Oak Ridge. I only needed the sprayer and a set of ladder brackets. I got there just after 7. The gate opened on my code. The lot was mostly empty. Then I saw my lock on the ground. It had been cut clean through the shackle. The door to F31 was still closed. That made it worse in a quiet way. Whoever cut the lock had not even bothered to leave the unit open. It looked less like a break-in and more like someone wanted me to notice the lock first. I took pictures before I touched anything. Then I called the office. The manager, Dale, came down in a golf cart with a clipboard and a tired look. He told me not to open the door yet. He photographed the lock, the latch, and the gravel in front of the unit. There were tire marks everywhere because it was a storage lot, so none of those meant much. When we finally rolled the door up, I expected empty shelves. Nothing expensive was gone. The sprayer was there, the nailer was there. My saw stands, cords, and tool bins were all still inside, but they had been moved. Not randomly. Someone had made a line from the back wall to the front of the unit. An extension cord first, then a hammer, then a glove, then an empty bit case, then a paint tray. Each item was set a few feet apart like a trail. At the end of the line near the open door was a key, a spare key to my work van. I knew it immediately from the black rubber head and the little crack near the ring, but the tag on it was wrong. I did not use paper key tags. I hated them because they tore off in tool bags. This one was white, tied on with thin wire. Someone had written on it in blue pen, van/customer access. Dale asked if it was mine. I said the key was. The tag was not. I pressed the unlock button from inside the unit. My van, parked 20 feet away in the gravel lane, flashed its lights once. That was when Dale stopped writing on his clipboard. Dale told me not to touch the key yet. I already had with the tip of my boot, but I did not say that. He took 2 more photos, then asked if I kept a spare van key in the unit. I told him no. That was only half true. I kept spare hardware in there. Spare blades, spare screws, spare hinges, but never a spare van key. The spare key stayed in a kitchen drawer at home in a ceramic bowl with batteries and loose change. I had used it the week before when my main fob died. I remembered putting it back. Dale asked if anyone else had access to F31. I said no, then thought about it, and hated that I had to think. I had hired helpers before. I had loaned tools before. I had given one guy my gate code 2 years earlier when I was stuck on a job and needed him to grab a ladder. But I had changed the code since then. At least I thought I had. Dale went back to the office to print the access log, while I stood there looking at the line of tools. It was not just a line, it was my morning routine laid out on the concrete. Extension cord, hammer, glove, bit case, paint tray, van key. Not the most expensive items, the items I touched without thinking before starting work. That bothered me more than missing tools would have. When Dale came back, the log showed one entry overnight, 3:12 a.m. Access type manual. No tenant code, no employee name, just manual. Dale said that could happen if the office system had been left logged in when someone opened the gate for a vendor or tow truck. He did not sound convinced. He said the facility bolt cutters were locked in the office and the cut on my lock was too clean for theirs anyway. I opened a small bit case to see if anything had been taken from it. My cut lock was inside, not another lock. Mine. Same brass body, same black scratch near the bottom. The shackle had been sliced clean through and both halves were tucked into the empty bit slots like they belonged there. I looked back at the gravel outside the unit. The lock I had photographed on the ground was not there anymore. Dale said he had not moved it. I believed him mostly because he looked too uncomfortable to lie well. My phone rang before either of us said anything else. It was the customer in Oak Ridge. I almost ignored it, then answered because I was already late. She did not sound angry. She sounded confused. She asked, "Did you send someone to pick up the side door key?" I stepped out of the unit and looked at my van. No one was near it. Nothing moved in the lot. I asked her what she meant. She said a man had come by about 20 minutes earlier. Work pants, clipboard, white van parked near the curb. He said I had sent him ahead to collect the access key before the repair. I had not sent anyone. I told her not to give him anything. There was a pause. Then she said I didn't, but he knew where we keep it. I told her to lock every door and call the police if he came back. Then I asked what he looked like. She said work pants, dark hoodie, ball cap, clipboard. No face she could describe well. He had kept his head down like people do when they are trying to look busy. The part that made my hands go cold was the van. She said it was white, ladder rack on top. Something dark on the rear bumper. She could not read the plate because the van was parked at an angle, and the morning sun hit the windshield of the car behind it. That described half the contractor vans in Tennessee. It also described mine. Dale heard enough of the call to stop treating it like a storage issue. He told me he would preserve the gate log and pull whatever camera footage they had. I told him to send me everything in writing. Then I called the non-emergency number and added the customer's address to the report. The officer on the phone asked if any property had been stolen from the customer. I said no. Then I heard the woman in Oak Ridge talking to someone in the background. She came back and said her husband had checked the mudroom. The hook beside the side door was crooked. One old key tag was missing. Not the house key they use now, an older one. They were not sure what had opened. That was when it stopped feeling like someone was trying to rob me. It felt like someone was borrowing my name. I canceled the job and told her not to let anyone in unless she spoke to me directly. She sounded polite but different after that. Careful. Like part of her wondered if I had sent the man and was now pretending I had not. I understood that. I would have wondered too. I drove straight to a locksmith instead of going home. I kept watching my mirrors on the way, not because anyone was following me, but because I could not stop looking at the white van behind every traffic light and wondering if it was mine from another angle. The locksmith checked the fob first, then the driver's side lock, then the ignition. Nothing looked forced from outside. He said if someone had cloned the key, they had done it clean. If someone had hidden something in the door that was different. I asked him to pull the interior panel. He gave me a look, the kind people give when they think fear is making you spend money. Then he saw the fresh mark near the lower seam, small, half hidden under dust, like a flat tool had been pushed in and twisted. He stopped giving me that look. The panel came off with a pop and a dry rattle of clips. Nothing fell at first. He checked inside with a flashlight and said he did not see a tracker. No loose fob, no wire. Then he tapped the bottom of the panel against the shop floor. A small piece of metal dropped out. It hit the concrete and spun once, part of a cut-lock shackle. I knew it before I picked it up. Same thickness, same dull steel. One side had a tiny smear of yellow paint on it, the same color as the stripe painted across the doors at the storage facility. The locksmith asked if I wanted him to bag it. I said yes. Then my phone buzzed again. It was a text from the Oak Ridge customer. She had sent a still image from her doorbell camera. The man's face was turned away. The van was blurry, but the clipboard in his hand was visible. Zoomed in, I could read the top line of the paper, my business name. I sent the doorbell image to the officer, then to Dale. Dale called me back 5 minutes later and said the facility camera had caught a white van leaving at 3:18 a.m. The plate was unreadable. Headlight glare washed out the back of it, but there was a dark rectangle on the rear bumper where a sticker would be. My van had a bumper sticker there too, at least it used to. I walked behind it in the locksmith parking lot and saw the scrape for the first time. Fresh, rectangular. The old sticker was gone, not peeled clean, cut off with something sharp, leaving gray adhesive and one curled black corner. The locksmith reprogrammed the fobs and changed the driver's side cylinder. I paid extra to have it done that day. Then I drove back to the storage facility and emptied F31 with Dale standing there. I did not sort. I did not check each bin. I loaded everything into the van and took it to my brother's garage. I canceled the Oak Ridge job. Then I canceled the next two. I told myself it was only for a few days until the police report was clearer and the locks were changed. But the truth was simpler. I did not want to stand in anyone's driveway with a tool bag while they wondered if I had sent the other man first. 3 days later, an email came through my business account. Access completed. It was an invoice PDF, my template, my logo, my business name, the kind of invoice I used for small jobs when no deposit was required. The customer name was Hayes. Hayes was scheduled for Friday. I had never been to the house. I had not even called to confirm the appointment yet. The invoice line read, "Side entry checked. Key returned to agreed location." There was no amount charged, no payment request, just the line item and a completed status. At the bottom was my typed name, not a signature. That would have been easier to call fake. Just my name placed exactly where my invoice program always put it. I called Hayes before I called the police. A woman answered. When I told her who I was, she sounded relieved and annoyed at the same time. She said she had been trying to reach me. Someone had come by that morning and said I had asked him to confirm the side entry before the repair. She had not let him inside, but she had shown him where the spare key box was mounted. My chest went hollow. I asked if the key was still there. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said, "The box is closed." I told her not to touch it. I told her to call the police from another room. I forwarded the invoice to the officer and sent Dale a copy too, because by then the storage unit felt like the beginning of the paper trail, not the whole thing. Dale responded with one attachment. It was the final incident report from the facility. The first photo showed the line of tools on the floor of F31. Extension cord, hammer, glove, bit case, paint tray. But the last item was not my van key. It was a key tag. White paper, blue pen, thin wire. Hayes' side door? I called Dale and told him that tag had not been there when we opened the unit. He said he knew. The report listed recovered tenant property as one cut lock, one van key, one vehicle, access fragment, and one customer access tag. I asked who entered customer access tag. Dale said no one at the facility had typed it. It appeared after the report synced to corporate. That evening, Hayes called again. Her voice sounded smaller this time. She said the police had checked the key box. The key inside was not theirs. It was blank, fresh cut, never used. I stopped taking residential jobs after that. Not forever, just long enough to stop seeing every driveway like evidence against me. A week later, I found my original spare van key in the kitchen drawer where it belonged. The black rubber head had the same crack near the ring. The key opened my van, and tied to it with thin wire was a white paper tag. Hayes' side door. I used to go to storage auctions on Saturdays, but not like people on TV. I was not looking for treasure. Most of what I bought was junk. I could clean list online or drag to a flea market for $20 more than I paid. Folding chairs, toolboxes, lamps, plastic bins full of things somebody had stopped wanting. The auction that morning was in Bakersfield, at a storage place behind an auto glass shop. The rules were the usual ones. Stand outside the unit. Do not touch anything. Look from the doorway, bid fast, and if you win, clean it out within 48 hours or pay a disposal fee. At check-in, the woman at the folding table wrote my name on the sheet and started to write bidder number 17 beside it. Then someone called her from the office. She looked away, scratched the number out, and handed me a plastic bidder card, 42. I noticed it because I do not like crossed out numbers on paperwork. It always feels like the beginning of an argument later. But the line behind me was long, and bidder numbers get mixed up at small auctions all the time. I put the card in my pocket and moved on. Lot 42 opened about 20 minutes later. It was a small drive-up unit, a couch with one sunken cushion, a broken dresser, 2 lamps, a stack of plastic bins along the left wall. Nothing special, but clean enough to resell without hating myself. The auctioneer started low. Nobody wanted it. I bid once and won. When I signed the sales slip, the number beside my name was 42. That should have been normal. It was the number on my card. Still, I remembered the woman scratching out 17 at check-in, and I did not like how clean the correction looked on the sales sheet, like it had never been anything else. I came back after the auction with gloves, trash bags, and a dolly. The facility gave me until Monday morning to clear the unit. I started with the plastic bins because they were easiest. The first one had a strip of masking tape across the lid. First apartment. I almost smiled at that. Everybody has a box like that. Cheap plates, mismatched forks, shower curtain rings, a lampshade nobody knows why they kept. Inside was exactly that kind of stuff. Then I found an old lease envelope tucked under the plates. There was no tenant name on it, no signature page, just the logo of an apartment complex printed in the corner. I knew the name. It was the same name as the first complex I lived in after leaving my mother's house. Not the same address, not the same city, just the same name. That was enough for me to pause, but not enough to stop. Apartment complexes reuse names all over California. Oak Ridge, Parkview, Sunset Villas. Names like that mean nothing. I put the envelope back and moved to the second bin. The masking tape on that one was newer. The label said "Old Job." The old job bin was heavier than the first one. I expected tools or books, but it was mostly clothes. Faded polo shirts, a half-empty box of receipt rolls, a cracked badge holder, a coffee mug wrapped in newspaper. The kind of things people take from a workplace because throwing them away feels rude, then keep for 10 years for no reason. At first, none of it meant anything. Then I saw the logo on one of the lanyards. It was from the copy shop where I worked when I was 22. Same blue square, same cheap white lettering. The name tag was missing, cut out with scissors, leaving only the plastic sleeve and a jagged edge. I told myself that was not impossible. The company had locations all over the state. Thousands of people had worked there. A lanyard from an old job did not mean it was my old job. Still, I put it aside instead of tossing it into the resale pile. That was the first thing I did differently. The next bin sat under a lamp with a cracked shade. The masking tape on it was yellowed, older than the tape on the first two. The handwriting was blocky and uneven. Mom's garage. I stared at that one longer than I should have. It was too specific and not specific enough. Everyone has a mother. Everyone's mother has a garage full of things no one is allowed to throw away. I opened it anyway. Inside were Christmas lights, dusty picture frames, a cookie tin full of screws, and a bundle of old cabinet handles wrapped in paper towels. Most of them were cheap brass pulls from the 80s, nothing worth selling. One small drawer pull made me stop. It was oval, tarnished, darker around the edge, with a little dent near one screw hole. I knew that shape because I had looked at the missing space where it belonged for years. My mother kept my old bedroom dresser in her garage. One of the middle drawers had been missing its pull since I was in high school. I almost called her right away, but I waited. I did not want to sound insane over a piece of cabinet hardware from an auction unit. So I took a picture and sent it with one question. "Does this look familiar?" She called instead of texting back. That was worse. She said she was standing in the garage. The dresser was still there. The middle drawer was still missing its pull. She sent me a photo while we were on the phone, and I opened it with the auction unit door still rolled up behind me. The empty holes on her dresser were exactly where I remembered them. I looked down at the pull in my glove. Same oval shape, same dark edge, same little dent near the screw hole. My mother asked where I found it. I told her I bought a storage unit. She got quiet. Then she said I never put anything in storage. Under the paper towel bundle, there was a folded auction tag. Not the tag from the sale that morning. This one was older, softer at the creases with a strip of dead tape stuck to the back. 3 words were printed across the top. Return with buyer. Below that was a field labeled verified contact. My name was typed there. I read my name 3 times, hoping it would become someone else's if I looked long enough. It did not. The tag was not new. That was what made it worse. The paper had softened at the folds. The tape on the back had gone brown and dry. It looked like it had been stuck to something for months, maybe years, not printed that morning from the auction desk. I carried it to the office with the drawer pull still in my other hand. The auction manager was eating from a foam takeout box behind the counter. His name was Ron. He had the kind of face people get after explaining rules all day. At first, he barely looked up when I said there was a problem with lot 42. Then I showed him the tag. He put the fork down. I asked why my name was under verified contact instead of buyer. He said that field was not for buyers. It was used when a facility had to return or hold abandoned contents because someone had a legal claim, estate claim, or property dispute. I asked why it was in a unit I had just bought. He said he did not know. That was the first honest thing anyone said that day. Ron pulled the sale packet for lot 42. The top page was normal, buyer name, bidder number, amount paid, clean out deadline, my signature. The second page was not normal. It listed me again, but not as buyer. Previous contents, verified contact. Ron said it was probably a merge error from check-in. Maybe my registration had filled the wrong field when the sale packet printed, but he did not sound like he believed that anymore. My phone buzzed while he was talking. It was my mother. She said she had checked the garage again. The dresser was still there. The garage door was locked. The side door was locked. Nothing big was missing, but one plastic tote near the back wall was open, and she was sure she had not opened it. Inside were old school papers, photos, birthday cards, and some of my father's things from before my parents split up. Someone had gone through it and put everything back badly. She said there was a strip of tape in the trash can that was not hers. I told her not to touch anything else. Then I called the non-emergency police number in Bakersfield from the storage office. I sounded stupid to myself while I explained it. Auction unit, drawer pull, my name in the wrong field, my mother's garage. The woman on the line did not laugh, but she did not make it sound urgent either. She said an officer could document it as suspicious property activity. Ron agreed to freeze the clean-out deadline. He said I should not remove anything else from lot 42 until there was a report number. That was the first thing he said that made me feel safer. I went back to the unit only to close it. The bins were still open where I had left them. First apartment, old job, mom's garage. 3 labels in a row like someone had sorted a life into resale categories. Before I rolled the door down, I noticed something on the couch, a white inventory sticker. It had not been there when the unit opened. I was sure of that. The couch had been the first thing I saw from the doorway. The sticker had one line printed in block letters. Source match failed. I did not peel it off. I photographed it, closed the unit, and gave Ron the lock. Ron called 2 days later and said the sale had been reversed. He sounded relieved, like that solved something. Lot 42 was being marked as disputed property. I would get my money back. The clean-out deadline was canceled. The facility would keep the contents until the ownership issue was reviewed. Then he said they needed one more signature. The form came through my email while we were still on the phone. Property release acknowledgement, lot 42, Bakersfield. My name filled in at the top. The wording said I acknowledged receiving and returning personal property annexed to the lot. I told Ron I was not signing that. He said it was standard. I said nothing about this was standard. I had bought abandoned contents at auction. I had not received personal property. I had not returned anything. I had not claimed the couch, the bins, the drawer pull, or the broken dresser as mine. Ron sighed and said without the form my bidder account might be suspended for incomplete closeout. That was the trap. Not a threat in a dark room. Just a normal business form that made the wrong story official if I signed it. So I did not sign. I sent him the police report number instead. A week later, the corrected sales sheet arrived from the auction company. The buyer field was blank now. The sale price had been voided. Lot status said released. Under disposition, it said, return to source address. The source address was my mother's house. I called her before I finished reading the line. She checked the porch first, nothing. Then the side door, nothing. Then she walked down the driveway and went quiet. There was a clean rectangle on the concrete near the garage about the size of a plastic storage tote. The rest of the driveway had dust and dry leaves on it. That patch did not. Something had been sitting there long enough to leave a shape, then had been dragged away. I told her to go inside and wait for the officer to call back. She did not listen. She went into the garage. The old dresser was still against the wall. The middle drawer, the one that had been missing its pull for years, had a brass pull attached to it now. She sent me a picture. It looked like the one from lot 42. Same oval shape, same dark edge, same little dent near one screw hole. I walked to my kitchen drawer and opened the plastic evidence bag where I had put the auction pull. It was still there. I did not tell my mother that part right away. A few days after that, a message came through my Facebook account from a man I did not know. He asked if the couch was still available and whether pickup after 6 would be okay. I had no couch listed. He sent me a screenshot. The listing used my name. The photo showed the couch from lot 42 sitting on a driveway. One cushion sunken in the middle, one lamp leaning against the arm. Behind it in the corner of the image, I could see my mother's garage door. The pickup address was her house. The listing had been posted 18 minutes earlier. I tried to report it, but by the time the page refreshed, it was gone. The account that posted it was gone too. Only the messages remained. 3 people had already asked what time they could come by. My mother stayed with my sister for 2 nights after that. I drove over and checked the garage myself. The dresser pull was still attached. The one from lot 42 was still in my evidence bag. I held them near each other without letting them touch. They were not exactly identical. That is what I tell myself. One was a little darker, or maybe the kitchen light made it look that way. The last message came the next morning. No name, no profile picture, just one line. Source match corrected. Under it was a photo of the couch back inside a storage unit I did not recognize. On the wall behind it, written in black marker, was my bidder number, 42. I rented Unit 214 because I was selling the house, not because I was ready to go through her things. Those are different things. My realtor called it decluttering. I called it moving boxes from one place I hated looking at to another place I could pay not to think about. My wife had been gone 8 months. Her coat was still by the back door. Her books were still on the nightstand. There was a sewing box under the dining room table because I had moved it there one afternoon and never found the strength to move it again. The storage facility was new, or at least it looked new. Bright lobby, glass doors, cold hallways, a row of rolling carts lined up near the elevator. The manager, Rachel, explained the climate system like it was a selling point. Temperature logs, humidity sensors, door alerts, automated texts if anything moved outside the safe range. That was why I chose it. I did not want her clothes in a hot garage. I did not want framed photos warping in a shed. I wanted the boxes somewhere clean and dry until I could decide what to do with them. Unit 214 was on the 2nd floor, close to the elevator. Rachel opened it for me and showed me the empty concrete floor, the white metal walls, and the little magnetic contact on the door frame. She said the system would log door activity and climate changes automatically. I liked that more than I should have. It felt like the unit would watch the things I could not. I moved everything in that afternoon. Wardrobe boxes, books, holiday bins, framed photos wrapped in towels, a sealed document box with house papers and estate forms. Last I brought in the wardrobe box with her winter coats and the gray-blue scarf she used to wear when it rained. I taped that box twice, not because it needed it, because I was tired and careful in the way people get when careful is the only useful emotion left. Before I left, I took a picture of the unit. Boxes along the left wall, document box near the front, wardrobe boxes in the back. The door closed cleanly. My lock clicked shut. Rachel waved from the lobby when I walked out. At 2:14 that morning, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Climate alert unit 214, humidity rising, personal contents at risk. I stared at the message for a long time. At first, I thought it was just the move-in. I had kept the door open too long, humid air had gotten in, new systems were sensitive. Rachel had said the sensors were sensitive. That was the explanation I chose because it was easier than getting dressed and driving across town in the middle of the night. I put the phone face down. 5 minutes later, it buzzed again. Climate alert door event detected. Unit 214, 2:14 a.m. I did not go back to sleep after the second alert. I lay there with the phone on my chest, waiting for another buzz. Nothing came. By morning, the messages looked less impossible than they had at 2:14. That happens in daylight. The world gets louder, and fear starts sounding dramatic. I drove to the facility before work. Rachel was already at the desk when I came in. I showed her the alerts. She frowned at the timestamps, then pulled up the unit dashboard. Unit 214 showed a humidity spike at 2:14 a.m. and a door event lasting 11 seconds. No access entry. No elevator use tied to my code. No staff code, no little maintenance note, nothing after I had left the evening before. Rachel said door sensors could misread if pressure shifted in the hallway. The HVAC system sometimes pulled air hard enough to make a loose seal register as open. She said it was rare but not unheard of. I wanted rare to be enough. We took the elevator up together. The hallway was cold and bright, too bright almost. Every sound seemed small there. The wheels of Rachel's cart, the hum in the ceiling, my key turning in my pocket because I kept rubbing it with my thumb. Before we reached Unit 214, Rachel stopped. At the end of the hall above the thermostat panel, something gray-blue was folded over the metal cover. I knew what it was before I got close. My wife's scarf. I did not pick it up right away. I stood there looking at the pulled thread near one edge, the one she used. To joke made it easier to tell which side was the front. It was folded once neatly, like someone had placed it there, instead of finding it on the floor. Rachel asked if it was mine. I said it was hers. Then I corrected myself. I said it had been hers. That was the first time Rachel looked uncomfortable for a reason that had nothing to do with her software. Unit 214 was still locked. My lock had no scratches. The door track was clean. Rachel opened the dashboard again from her tablet and checked the event log while I opened the unit. The wardrobe box was still in the back. Same place, same tape. I had taped it twice and both strips still crossed the top seam. Nothing looked cut. I should have left it closed until someone else could document it, but I needed to know. I cut the tape. The coats were there. Sweaters, a rain jacket, a pair of gloves tucked into one sleeve, but the scarf was not inside. Rachel took pictures without me asking. The sealed tape before I cut it, the open box after, the scarf on the thermostat, the unit door, the sensor. She said maybe I had dropped it on the cart during move-in and someone found it overnight and put it near the thermostat so it would not get stepped on. That was possible. It was even kind in a strange way, but the building was closed overnight. And the scarf did not smell like storage. It smelled faintly like the laundry detergent we used at home, the old one, the one I stopped buying after she died because smelling it in the grocery aisle made me leave without buying anything. Rachel offered to put in a maintenance ticket for the sensor. I asked for the logs instead. She printed them downstairs. Door event, humidity spike, no access entry, all at 2:14 a.m. At the bottom of the log was a small note neither of us had noticed on the screen. Preserve range exceeded. I asked what preserve range meant. Rachel said she did not know. The next 2 nights were the same. At 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. Climate alert, humidity rising. Then another. Door event detected. Then a third one new this time. Sensitive personal contents at risk. I did not sleep after that. I kept the phone beside me with the brightness turned low, like watching it would stop the messages from coming. They came anyway, always at the same minute, always from Unit 214. On the third morning, I went back before the facility opened and waited in the parking lot. Rachel let me in through the lobby at 9. She did not act annoyed. That helped. She looked like she had been checking the system before I arrived. She said the phrase sensitive personal contents should not be there. That was used for customers who paid for the inventory protection add-on. The facility photographed specific items, tagged them, and flagged them if the climate went outside range. I had not signed up for that. I had not uploaded photos. I had not listed what was inside. Rachel turned the monitor toward me. Under Unit 214, there was a new item. Memory box preservation, hold pending. I knew which box it meant before I saw it. A medium cardboard box with her handwriting on the top. It had birthday cards, old photo envelopes, ticket stubs, and little things I was not ready to sort. It was not valuable, not to anyone else. I asked how the system knew that box existed. Rachel said it might have been a mistaken scan from another account. Maybe the wrong item had attached to my unit. Maybe someone clicked the wrong field when reviewing the maintenance ticket. I asked if that meant I could take it home. She did not answer fast enough. We went upstairs together. Unit 214 was locked. No scratches, no new marks. The hallway smelled colder than the lobby, like metal and filtered air. I opened the unit while Rachel stood behind me with her tablet. The memory box had moved, not far, just from behind the book boxes to the front corner, where I could see her handwriting without moving anything else. On the lid was a small square sticker I had never seen before. Blue border, white center, no logo, no barcode, just a tiny droplet symbol in the corner. Rachel said the facility did not use those stickers. I reached for the box and her tablet chimed. She looked down and said, "Please don't move it yet." That was when I got angry, not loud, just cold. I told her it was my box, my wife's things, my unit, my lock. She said she understood, but the system had flagged it as preservation hold pending, and if she let me remove it before corporate cleared it, the facility could be liable for what I asked. She looked at the box, then at me, for releasing protected contents to the wrong party. I almost laughed. I was the only party. Instead, I asked for a printed record, access logs, hold status, case number, everything. Rachel nodded and said she would print it downstairs. Before we left, I checked for the sealed document box with the house papers. It should have been near the front where I had put it on move-in day. It was not there. I moved 3 boxes, then 4. Rachel helped after the second one. The document box was not in the unit. My realtor called while I was still kneeling on the concrete. The buyer's inspector needed a mortgage clarification packet from the estate file before the inspection window closed. I told her I had it. Then I looked at the empty space where it should have been and realized I did not know if that was true anymore. Downstairs, Rachel printed the case sheet. The first line read, "Preservation hold open 2:14 a.m. The contact field below it was blank. Then, as the printer pushed out the last page, it filled in by itself on the screen. Surviving spouse. I did not like seeing those words in the system. Surviving spouse. I had written them on forms for 8 months. Insurance forms, bank forms, county forms. Every time it felt like a label someone put on me because husband no longer fit. Seeing it on a storage case sheet made my skin feel too tight. Rachel said she did not enter it. I believed her. That was becoming part of the problem. I took the printed case sheet, the access logs, and the hold status home with me. I called my realtor first, then the estate attorney, then corporate storage. Everyone had a different tone for the same answer. They needed more time. They needed review. They needed the missing document box found before the house inspection could move forward. That afternoon, my grief counselor forwarded me an email. She wrote one sentence above it. "Did you authorize this?" The forwarded message came from a preservation vendor I had never heard of. The subject line was quiet and professional. Release of personal effects. The body asked whether the surviving spouse had emotionally cleared the release of preserved personal effects from climate storage. It used my full name. It used my wife's first name. It referenced Unit 214. I sat at my kitchen table and read it until the words stopped making sense. I had never given the storage facility my counselor's name. I had never listed her office. The only place her information existed was inside an estate support folder at home, with insurance notes, medical bills, and a few printed appointment reminders. That folder had been inside the missing document box. The next morning, I did not go alone. My brother came with me. He did not ask many questions, which was the best thing he could have done. He brought a dolly work gloves and the kind of calm voice people use when they are trying not to make you feel fragile. Rachel met us at the lobby with a corporate case number already printed. She said the memory box was still flagged, but she had permission for supervised removal if I signed a release form. I read it at the counter. Preserved personal effects transferred to surviving spouse. I put the pen down. I told her I was not signing anything that made this sound like a process I had requested. She looked relieved when I said it, which told me she had hoped I would refuse. We went upstairs and started moving everything except the memory box. Books, photos, wardrobe boxes, holiday bins. My brother did most of the lifting. I checked each box against the move-in photo on my phone. The document box was not in the unit. We found it 20 minutes later, at the end of the hall beside the dehumidifier drain. It was sitting on a dry square of floor. The concrete around it had a faint water stain, but the cardboard was dry except for one softened corner. The tape across the top was still sealed. Rachel took pictures before anyone touched it. I opened it with my brother standing beside me. Most of the papers were still there. Mortgage copies, death certificate copies, realtor packet, insurance letters. But the estate verification folder was gone. The one my realtor had called about, the one with the inspection deadline. There was also something new in the bottom of the box. A small blue humidity sticker stuck to the inside flap. It had turned white. Rachel called corporate from the hallway. Her voice was different this time, not customer service calm, angry calm. She said the document box had been found outside the tenant unit near facility equipment with sealed tape and missing contents. While she was on the phone, I looked at the incident report on her tablet. Item location returned from Unit 214, not hallway, not drain, returned. My brother saw it too. He said very softly, "We're leaving." Rachel overrode the memory box holder herself. I do not know if she was supposed to. She printed a note saying she had released it under manager's supervision and attached our photos to the case. When I carried the memory box to the car, the blue sticker on its lid was white too. I had not seen it change. Nobody had touched it since we entered the building. We emptied Unit 214 before noon. Rachel stood in the doorway while my brother swept the concrete floor. I took pictures of every corner. Empty left wall, empty back wall, empty right wall, door track, ceiling pipe, magnetic sensor, nothing left inside. Rachel took her own photos, then closed the account from her tablet while we were still standing there. She printed the receipt downstairs. Unit 214 vacated, contents removed, account closed. I asked her to print another copy with no active hold listed. She did. I asked for the final access log. She printed that too. I knew I sounded difficult. I did not care anymore. My brother stored the boxes in his garage that night because I could not bring them back into the house. The realtor and attorney worked around the missing estate folder with copies from the county and bank. The inspection was delayed but not canceled. For the first time in a week, there was a version of the future that looked normal again. I wanted that to be the ending. At 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. Climate alert unit 214, humidity rising. Personal contents at risk. I sat up so fast I knocked the phone onto the floor. The account was closed. The unit was empty. I had the receipt on my kitchen table. I had the photos. I had Rachel's signature on the final report. Then another notification came through. Inventory preview available. I did not open it right away. I sat there in the dark looking at the words until the screen dimmed. When I finally tapped it, the app opened to a low-resolution thumbnail. It was not a camera image. The facility did not have cameras inside units. It looked like some kind of inventory snapshot, compressed and grainy, with the edges warped by bad upload quality. The floor in the photo was bare concrete. In the center was a folded gray-blue scarf. I cannot prove it was hers. I need to say that. The image was too small. The color could have been anything. The pulled thread near the edge could have been compression noise. But I knew the fold. I had folded her scarf that same way when I put it into the box at my brother's house. I called Rachel in the morning. She checked the system while I was on the phone. Unit 214 was still closed. Not rented, not active, not assigned to anyone. She said the alert had not been generated by my account. It came from an archive preservation event that should not have been able to send notifications. She said corporate was looking into it. Everyone was always looking into it. 2 days later, my realtor called about the inspection report. The buyer still wanted the house, but the inspector had added a moisture observation in the primary bedroom closet. I opened the PDF on my laptop. Item 2.14 unexplained moisture staining primary bedroom closet. I read the line twice before the number registered. 2.14. The closet had been empty for weeks. That was where my wife's coats used to hang. The same coats I had moved into Unit 214. The inspector found no active leak, no roof issue, no plumbing behind the wall. Just a faint rectangle of darker flooring near the back corner, like a box had sat there and protected the wood around it. I drove to the house that afternoon. The place felt staged and hollow. No shoes by the door, no books on the nightstand, no sewing box under the dining room table. It looked more ready for strangers than it had ever looked for us. The bedroom closet was open. The stain was exactly where the inspector marked it. A dull rectangle on the floorboards, dry to the touch. I checked the wall, the ceiling, the shelf. That was where I found the label. It was stuck to the underside of the closet shelf, far enough back that you would only see it if you bent down and looked up. Small, white, printed in clean black letters. Preserve range 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. I did not take it off. I photographed it, closed the closet door, and left the house without turning off the lights. The sale still went through. People always ask that part. Yes. The house sold. The storage account closed. The boxes stayed in my brother's garage for almost a year, but I never opened the wardrobe box again. I used to think storage was where you put things until you were ready to keep them. Now, I think some things wait until they can come back with a label. By the time someone's things reached our warehouse, nobody called them belongings anymore. They were inventory. That was the word on the forms, the carts, the computer screens, and the barcode labels. Inventory sounded clean. It made the work easier. A stained couch was inventory. A box of baby clothes was inventory. A drawer full of birthday cards was inventory. If you use the right word long enough, you stop thinking about who had packed it. I worked part-time at a storage liquidation warehouse outside Harrisburg. We received abandoned contents from facilities all over Pennsylvania and sometimes farther out. Delinquent units, estate cleanouts, disputed auctions. Things that could not go straight to sale until someone photographed, labeled, and sorted them. My job was simple. Open the pallet, photograph every visible item, attach the barcode, upload the set, move the lot to a staging rack. I liked simple work. That morning, the intake bay was backed up with pallets wrapped in cloudy plastic. My supervisor, Gina, handed me a camera, an SD card, and a stack of lot sheets. She said we were behind and needed the photo station moving all day. The first lot was P117, nothing special. 2 kitchen chairs, a box of old grocery bags, a cracked lamp, 3 plastic bins, and a drawer unit with 1 missing handle. I took wide shots first, then close-ups. That was policy. Show enough detail that bidders could not complain later. Inside the drawer unit was a folded grocery receipt. I almost left it alone, but paper with text had to be photographed if it was visible. The receipt was from a store 2 blocks from my apartment. Same chain, same location, printed only 6 weeks earlier. That was odd, but not impossible. People moved. People shopped anywhere. Inventory came from all over the state, but all over the state still included places near me. I took the picture and kept going. The next lot had an apartment key tag without a key. Blue plastic scratched white around the hole. The complex name printed on it was the same as mine. No unit number, no address, just the name. I stood there longer than I should have, holding it under the photo light. There were probably a dozen apartment complexes with that name, maybe more. Names like Brookstone and Parkview and Mill Creek get reused because they sound safe and forgettable. Gina walked by and told me to keep the tags with the lot unless they had keys attached, so I put it back. That is the kind of decision that sounds stupid later, but at the time it was nothing. A receipt, a key tag. Two small coincidences inside a building that processed hundreds of strangers' lives every month. I finished P117 and uploaded the photo set. The system stalled at 98%. Then it displayed a duplicate file name warning, resolved it by itself, and completed the upload. That happens sometimes with shared cameras. I wrote it down on the lot sheet because Gina liked notes when the system acted up. Before I closed the folder, I reviewed the thumbnails. Chairs, lamp, grocery receipt, plastic bins, drawer unit. Key tag from the second lot by mistake, probably because I had uploaded both sets too close together. Then one extra thumbnail appeared at the end. It was mostly dark, blurry, cropped too close to understand. But in the lower corner, there was a small piece of red plastic. I clicked the extra thumbnail, expecting the usual warehouse garbage. A bad angle, someone's sleeve, the inside of the camera cap. Shared cameras picked up strange files all the time when people forgot to format cards properly. The image opened slowly. It showed the corner of a red plastic tag under a stack of manila folders. Most of the label was cut off. I could only see part of a black printed line and one scratched hole at the top. There was no lot number in the frame, no barcode, nothing that told me where it came from. I checked the file details. Created 6:03 a.m. I had not been in the warehouse at 6:03. My shift started at 8:30. I still had the time clock app on my phone showing I had badged in at 8:38. I stared at those 2 times like they might rearrange themselves. They did not. Gina was at the next station checking a pallet of old office chairs. I called her over and showed her the file. She said what I wanted her to say. Shared SD card, previous photographer, auto sync from another station. Maybe the camera clock was wrong. Then I showed her the camera clock. It was correct. She frowned and took the mouse from me. She tried to delete the thumbnail from P117. A gray warning appeared. Deletion blocked. Chain of custody incomplete. I had never seen that message before. Gina had. Her face changed just enough for me to notice. She said chain of custody only applied to restricted items. Legal documents, estate property, personal effects, anything that might have to be returned instead of sold. I told her P117 was chairs and junk drawers. She opened the intake sheet. It was clean at first. Lot number, facility source, date received, pallet ID, no hold, no dispute, no restricted contents. Then the page refreshed by itself. A new line appeared at the bottom. Next owner contact pending. Gina did not touch the keyboard for a second. Then she said the system had probably crossed 2 cases. It happened when intake staff reused pallet IDs or scanned a barcode twice. She said it with the tone supervisors use when they are trying to keep the day moving more than solve the problem. I wanted to let her. It was not my lot, not my property, not my paperwork. I was just the photographer. I had no reason to make it personal. Gina printed a correction sheet and told me to sign as witness that the image had appeared in the wrong upload set. I read the line before signing, prepared by my name. I had not prepared it. I had not opened that form. I had not typed anything except the lot notes. I told Gina I wanted that changed before I signed. She sighed, not angry, just tired. She crossed out the line by hand and wrote her initials beside it. That should have been enough. But underneath the witness box in small gray system text was another line. Handler attached, then my name again. Gina folded the correction sheet in half before I could read the rest. She told me to move to Station 3 and keep shooting. IT would look at P117 later. I walked to the other photo station with the camera in my hand and the red thumbnail still open in my head. At Station 3, a new pallet was waiting. The lot sheet said office contents C row. The C row pallet looked like every small office cleanout I had ever photographed. A metal file tray, 2 broken task chairs, a box of invoice pads, a paper cutter with rust on the blade guard, bundles of vinyl sign scraps curled at the edges, 3 banker's boxes with their lids taped shut. It smelled like dust toner and old cardboard. I remember thinking it would be quick. Office lots usually were. Wide shot, contents shot, any visible paperwork photographed just enough to show condition, then marked restricted if there were names, addresses, or account numbers. We were not supposed to read deeply. We were supposed to document. That rule is easy to follow until the paperwork starts using words you have already seen. The first folder sat in the metal tray half slid under a stack of blank invoices. The tab said C-Row Release Packet. Not C19, not the red tag, just C-Row. I photographed it because the tab was visible. Then I lifted the corner with a gloved hand to see whether there were personal names inside. The top page was a release checklist. Most fields were blank, but one line had been highlighted yellow. Hold transfer incomplete. Next file requested. I felt my stomach drop in a way that did not make sense yet. Next file? It was office language. It could have meant anything. Storage companies had files for everything. Lease files, auction files, release files, maintenance files. The warehouse ran on paperwork nobody outside the business would ever think about. I took the required photo and marked the folder restricted. The upload rejected it. Restricted personal contents detected. That was normal enough. I clicked the restricted checkbox again and tried to attach the note Gina usually wanted visible paperwork. No sale value. The screen flashed red. Conflict of ownership detected. My account locked. I sat there with my hands still on the keyboard. The photo station would not let me upload, delete, edit, or move to the next item. The folder image stayed on the screen. Under it, a small line of system text appeared. Employee access limited until ownership conflict resolved. I called Gina. She read the message, then looked at the folder, then at me. For the first time that day, she did not offer a quick explanation. She took the folder out of the tray and flipped through it herself. There were release forms inside, intake corrections, a photocopied tag sheet, a damaged inventory page with the corner torn off. On one of the forms, the unit field was mostly blank, except for a reference code printed along the side, C19/hold. Gina closed the folder. She said, "Do you recognize any of this?" I said no. That was true, but not complete. I recognized the shape of the problem. I recognized the way the system had started using me before asking me anything. Gina called corporate support from the floor phone. While she was waiting on hold, the printer beside Station 3 woke up. Neither of us had sent anything to it. One page came out, witness correction form. At the top was the warehouse name. Under that, the C-Row lot number. The form said the employee photographer had captured restricted contents in error and confirmed no personal connection to the disputed property. There was a signature line for me. I did not sign it. Gina said she understood, but if I refused, the shift report would stay unresolved, and my employee account might remain locked until corporate reviewed the conflict. I told her to write that I disputed the connection. She wrote it by hand in the margin. Then I took a photo of the whole form with my phone. Gina saw me do it and did not stop me. Corporate finally picked up. She gave them the case number, then the C-Row lot number, then the reference printed on the side of the release form. When she said C19 out loud, the photo station screen changed. The locked folder image disappeared. For less than a second, another image flashed in its place. A file box, a red plastic tag, a printed release acknowledgement with a signature field blacked out. Then the screen went blank and returned to the login page. Gina stopped talking mid-sentence. I looked back at the pallet. The paper cutter sat near the front, its handle angled upward. Beneath the handle, caught between the metal frame and the rubber foot, was something red. Not a corner this time, a tag. Gina told me not to touch it. I did anyway, but not with my hands. I used my phone first. Wide shot of the pallet, close shot of the paper cutter, close shot of the red plastic under the handle. Another one with the lot sheet in frame, because by then I had learned that objects mattered less than where the system said they were. The tag was wedged hard enough that I had to lift the paper cutter with both hands. while Gina pulled it free with a pair of packing pliers. It was older than the other warehouse tags, thicker plastic, scratched surface, a cut zip tie mark near the hole. The printing looked thermal, like it had been made fast and not meant to last. C19/hold for next owner. I read it once, then again. Gina said it was probably an old facility hold tag that came in with the office lot. Her voice was steady, but she did not sound convinced. She had been around enough storage paperwork to know when something belonged in a lot and when something had followed one. She scanned the tag with the handheld reader. For a second, nothing happened. Then the screen loaded a restricted case summary. I only saw it because I was standing beside her. Prior file released. Next file accepted. Transfer status found. Current handler my name. Transfer route 3B. Gina turned the reader away so fast I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because there is a point where your body reaches for the wrong response just to keep you standing. She said I should step away from the pallet. I asked what 3B meant. She said she did not know. That was either a lie or the most frightening honest answer she could have given. Corporate support came back on the floor phone. Gina lowered her voice. I heard enough. Restricted case. Employee attached incorrectly. C19 tag located in C row lot. Possible cross-chain error. She kept saying error, like repetition could make it true. I told her I was leaving for the day. She did not argue. She only asked me to leave the warehouse camera and SD card at the desk because they were company property. I had already photographed the metadata, the correction form, and the tag with my phone. I handed over the camera. At the time clock, my badge would not let me clock out. The screen said, employee status under review. Gina had to override it manually. I drove home with both hands tight on the wheel and the words transfer route repeating in my head. 3B. I lived in apartment 3B. I had never told the warehouse that in any storage context. Payroll had my address, yes. Human resources had it, tax forms had it, but a restricted hold case should not have been pulling from employee payroll data. It should not have known where I lived. My phone rang before I reached the apartment complex. It was the leasing office. The assistant manager asked if I had scheduled a move-out inspection for that afternoon. I said no. She paused, then asked if I had authorized any third-party contents removal. I pulled into the parking lot and sat there with the engine running. She said a storage-related vendor had called asking whether Unit 3B was accessible for pre-removal walkthrough. They used the word unit, not apartment. They had my full name and building number. I told her not to let anyone in. She said they would not, but there was already a canceled request in the maintenance portal. It had appeared that morning and disappeared before approval. I asked her to send me a screenshot. By the time I reached my door, it was in my email. Pre-removal walkthrough Unit 3B. Vendor field blank. Owner contact pending response. My apartment door was locked. No scratches, no broken latch. The hallway was empty except for the old carpet runner and the fire extinguisher cabinet near the stairs. Then I saw the sticker. It was stuck low near my threshold, half on the door frame, half on the painted trim. Small white and easy to miss. A barcode. Under it in tiny print, Lot 3B pending. I did not peel it off. I photographed it, then stood there listening through my own door, like I was the stranger outside someone else's life. The phone camera tried to read the barcode automatically. A preview appeared before I could stop it. Personal contents not yet removed. I called the leasing office from the hallway and told them I was not opening the door until someone came up. The assistant manager, Denise, arrived with a maintenance tech 5 minutes later. She looked embarrassed at first, like I was overreacting to a sticker. Then I showed her the email screenshot from her own portal. Pre-removal walkthrough Unit 3B. Owner contact pending response. She stopped looking embarrassed. The maintenance tech checked my lock, the strike plate, and the door frame. Nothing was broken. No tool marks. No sign anyone had gone in. Denise opened the portal on her tablet and found the canceled request. It had been created at 10:12 that morning, held for 3 minutes, then canceled by external intake. She said their system did not have an external intake category. I asked for an emergency lock change. She said they could do it, but the tech had to file it as a security concern because there was no forced entry. He did that right there standing in the hallway while I watched every field he typed. Denise peeled the barcode from my door frame and put it in a plastic envelope from the office. Before she sealed it, I photographed both sides. The back of the sticker had one printed line, "Handler copy not for owner." That was when I called police non-emergency. The officer who came was polite and careful. He listened. He looked at the sticker. He looked at the portal screenshots. He looked at the warehouse photos on my phone, including the red tag and the restricted case summary I had caught beside Gina. He did not laugh. But there was no break-in, nothing missing, no suspect, no threat written in plain language. He wrote a suspicious activity report and told Denise to flag my apartment for no third-party access without verbal confirmation from me. I wanted that to feel like protection. It felt like paperwork being stacked on top of other paperwork. After the officer left, I went inside with Denise and the maintenance tech standing in the doorway. The apartment looked normal. Living room lamp, dark rug, half-full coffee mug by the sink, laptop on the small desk. Nothing out of place. Then my phone buzzed, an email from the auction platform. Not my work email, my personal email. The one payroll had the one I had never used for auction listings. Subject preview listing approved lot 3B. I did not open it until Denise asked what was wrong. The listing loaded with a row of preview images. The first photo showed the hallway outside my apartment. The second showed a moving cart beside the elevator. The third showed the lower corner of my living room, the dark rug, the cheap floor lamp, the edge of my desk. The angle was low, like the camera had been set on the floor or held from a box. I looked at that same corner across the room. No box, no camera, no cart. The fourth image was the barcode sticker on my door frame before Denise removed it. The fifth was a close-up of an empty cardboard box with a white inventory label. The description read, Lot 3B personal contents, pending removal. Access window awaiting owner release. Item count furniture, clothing, documents, electronics, occupant record. Denise read it over my shoulder and whispered, "That's not possible." I called Gina at the warehouse. She answered on the second ring, but her voice sounded like she was outside away from the floor. I told her about the listing. She was quiet for so long I thought the call dropped. Then she said corporate had restricted the C-19 case and removed her access. My employee account was still locked. The system showed me as attached to an ownership conflict, and she was not allowed to discuss active disputes over the phone. I told her this was my apartment. She said very softly, "I know." That was worse than if she had said she did not believe me. I asked what occupant record meant. She did not answer. The line clicked, then went dead. Denise insisted I should not stay there that night. The officer had already left, but she called him back and asked whether he could add the listing to the report. He said he could attach screenshots, but unless someone tried to enter, it was still suspicious activity, not burglary. I packed a backpack while the maintenance tech changed the lock. Laptop, medication, 2 shirts, passport, a folder with my lease. I did not take much because taking too much made it feel like the listing had already won. When I opened the door to leave, a sheet of paper slid back against my shoe. It had been pushed halfway under the door. Not handwritten, not dramatic. Just a printed inventory receipt on thin paper. Handler copy not for owner. Lot 3B, item count 1 occupant. I slept at a friend's place that night, but sleep is the wrong word. I lay on his couch with my backpack beside me and watched the ceiling change color every time a car passed outside. I kept checking my phone for new emails from the auction platform. None came. That should have made me feel better. It only made me feel like something had finished processing. The next morning, I went back to the apartment with Denise and the same officer from the report. The new lock worked. The door opened normally. No damage, no smell. No sound inside except the refrigerator running and the cheap clock above the stove ticking too loudly. At first, nothing looked different. Then Denise saw the cardboard box. It was sitting in the lower corner of my living room, beside the dark rug and the floor lamp, exactly where it had appeared in the auction preview. I had not owned that box the day before. It was plain brown cardboard, folded, but not sealed with a white inventory label on one side. The officer told me not to touch it. He photographed it from 3 angles, then read the label aloud. Lot 3B intake pending. There was no return address, no company logo, just the label and a barcode. I looked around the apartment. My desk drawer was open about 2 inches. The printer tray had 1 sheet of paper sitting in it. Near the front door, there was sticky residue where the barcode sticker had been removed. The officer pulled the paper from the printer with gloves. It was an auction listing proof. Not a threat, not a note, not handwriting, just a clean formatted page with gray boxes and small print like a document someone expected to file. Lot 3B intake pending. Item summary, furniture, documents, clothing, electronics, occupant record. Below that in smaller text, occupant status not yet cleared. Denise covered her mouth with one hand. The officer took more pictures. He asked if my printer was connected to the internet. It was. He asked if anyone had my Wi-Fi password. I said no, except the router still had the old apartment company sticker on it, and that made him write something down. That was how the whole thing kept going. Every impossible part had one small, normal explanation attached to it. A network printer, a leaked payroll email, a canceled maintenance request, a shared SD card, a barcode someone could have printed anywhere. Enough to keep it from becoming the kind of crime people act on quickly. I packed the rest of my important things while they watched. Passport, lease, tax folder, external hard drive, some clothes. I left the furniture, I left the lamp from the listing, I left the box. Denise said they would move me to a temporary unit in another building if I wanted. I asked her not to use that word, unit. She understood before I explained. By noon, my warehouse account had been suspended. The email was short and careful. Temporary access restriction, pending ownership conflict review. No accusation, no apology, just process. I called Gina from my car. Her number went straight to voicemail. Later that afternoon, she called back from a different number. She sounded tired in a way that made me lower my voice too. She said corporate had removed her from the C19 queue, then removed her from the floor schedule. She was not fired, not officially, just pending review. I asked her what the case said now. She hesitated. Then she said there was one archived transfer note still visible before her access disappeared. Next file accepted. I asked what file. She said, I think you already know. Then she told me not to log into the auction platform again. The mailer came 3 days later. It was forwarded from my old apartment address to my friend's house. A glossy auction preview packet, the kind we used to send to registered bidders. Normal envelope, normal postage, no strange handwriting. My name printed perfectly above the address. Inside was a preview sheet for Lot 3B. 6 photos, the hallway outside my apartment, the moving cart beside the elevator, the cardboard box in my living room, the corner with the rug and lamp, a close-up of a red tag hanging from the cart handle, an empty concrete floor I did not recognize. The red tag no longer said C19, it said, hold for next owner. The condition report was attached behind the photos. Owner contact attempted, no response recorded. Contents eligible for transfer. Occupant status not yet cleared. At the bottom was a QR code. I should not have scanned it. I know that. Gina had told me not to. The officer would have told me not to. Anyone sensible would have sealed the packet in a bag and handed it over as evidence. But when a system spends days turning your life into paperwork, there is a part of you that wants to see the final page. The QR code opened an archived auction page. Not active, no bidding button, no public comments, just a gray status box. Transferred. Under the status was a new file number. Next file, 3B. I refreshed the page once. It disappeared and returned a standard error message. Listing unavailable. The police report stayed open for a while, then became an incident file. The apartment complex let me out of my lease. The warehouse never called me back. My final paycheck arrived with a separate mailed form saying my employee access card had been deactivated and all company property was returned. At the bottom of that form was a line I still have in a folder. Remaining personal contents, none. I do not work auctions anymore. I do not rent storage. I do not even like leaving boxes in closets. People think abandoned means nobody wanted it anymore. I think it means the paperwork found someone else to belong to next. And if a storage unit ever gives you paperwork with your name already printed on it, do not sign anything. Do not correct the record. Just leave before the next file opens.